So last week, BBC Studios announced that it's been working on an ambitious multi-platform project for Doctor Who called the Time Lord Victorious. We only have the barest of details at the moment on what it actually entails, as well as this single piece of key art and the following known factors. It will be set during the Dark Times at the beginning of the universe, when even the Eternals were young. We also know that it will involve the adventures of the 8th, 9th and 10th Doctors across the mediums of, well, everything. Except TV. I'm suspecting that the overall storyline will unfold in bits and pieces, but apparently it's going to evolve across the audiobooks, novels, comics, games, a magazine, and even an escape room company has gotten involved somehow. It's like a celebration of all the extra content that gets released beyond the screen, well, TV screens at any rate. So, alongside this image, what can we discern from the setting? To begin with, the name. Of course, the Time Lord Victorious was a semi-pseudonym adopted by the 10th Doctor at the end of the Waters of Mars storyline. It is not a good thing. Without getting into the details of that episode, it basically had the Doctor enter a very dangerous place at its culmination, pressured by the knowledge of his oncoming regeneration and perturbed by his realisation that, as there is no more Time Lord society, he assumes that he himself can be the sole arbiter of time. This is followed quickly by the realisation that he has gone too far, and it effectively goes against everything he's supposed to stand for. Ever since then, the connotations of the Time Lord Victorious have not been good. Not to mention it sounds eerily close to another name that a dark incarnation of the Doctor went by, the Valeyard. Although that is a made-up word. So worryingly, it could involve the Doctor delving deeper into his own darker sides, especially as these are the Doctors centred around the effects of the Time War, excluding John Hurt's War Doctor. I will note that the fractured Victorious font here seems to indicate that things are not going well, and I originally tried to overlay the crack in time from Doctor 11's run to see if this would line up. It does not quite. But still, perhaps it represents that timelines have gone wonky. As for the Dark Times themselves, it could allude to several things. Specifically, in relation to Gallifrey, it was the blanket term for the era before they ascended to become Time Lords. Pre-time travel, pre-regeneration, and before the whole timeless child thing. In terms of the universe, it was the eons immediately after its creation, where supposedly the laws of physics had yet to establish properly, and mystic forces like magic were still at play. Also, according to older lore, this era cannot really be visited by time travel after the linearity of time was established, but Doctor Who and continuity have the same relationship that me and the outdoors have. I'm aware it's there, but I really only go to it when I need something. As for the Eternals, they are some of the oldest beings in the universe, so saying that we're going back to when they were young insinuates just how far back these journeys are going. Among the only forces in the universe that were older are beings that predate the Big Bang and entities like the Black and White Guardians. Suffice to say, the Eternals were just as, or perhaps even more so, as arrogant as the Time Lords, and were often worshipped as gods by various cultures. I don't think they'll have much bearing on the plot, but you never know. As for what we can surmise by the promotional image, taking centre stage is the 10 Tenant, looking rather dishevelled and wearing the robes of a Time Lord. The only times the Doctor ever dons these is generally when he's being forced to by the Time Lords. Specifically, however, these robes are in the same style as the ones worn by the older Rassilon as seen in Hell Bent, except for the mantle part is that of a plain Time Lord bearing the seal of Rassilon, the symbol of the Prydonian chapter to which the Doctor belongs. So are we to assume that he's taken up a position of authority among the Time Lords then? We also have 8 wearing his outfit from closer to the end of the Time War, as opposed to his first stolen get-up or other Big Finish depictions. 9 is of course in his standard hardman leather jacket, which offers a +1 to his toughness stats. Aside from the 3 Doctors, we have Rose Tyler, although she is all done up in a nice dress. But are those bloodstains? Probably not, but none of them look happy. I was trying to get a good look at the necklace, and I think it's a Time Lord one, made of numerous circular runes, but it is hard to tell. Of course, we could also be dealing with a bad wolf, but it does specify Rose Tyler in the description. The baddies in the image are, of course, the Daleks, although we have a distinct lack of the Time War era bronze beasties, and instead we have them in the same style but various colours. There is also a prominent pre-Time War Dalek, as well as numerous Dalek saucers. And we have a Mr. Ood. It could be any. Can I say they all look the same? Is that okay? However, the Ood featured prominently in the build-up to Ten's regeneration, giving him the warning and guiding him back on track after the whole victorious thing. Maybe even that same Ood, Sigma I think he was called. Most interestingly, however, is the inclusion of a wing of Gallifreyan bowships in the upper right corner. These were Dark Time era Gallifreyan space fighters that they used in combat with the greater vampires. They've seen the occasional reuse since, but their primary function was to, frankly, impale vampires with that giant stake on the front. Suffice to say, they're Gallifreyan and from a time of war, and one can only be victorious in combat. So here's my theory. Are we dealing with a renegade 10th Doctor who was not steered back on the path of the Doctor and instead assumes the victorious moniker, or at least given in to his drive to right all of the wrongs, no matter the consequences? Since then, perhaps he's gone back and attempted to prevent the very Time War itself, and in so doing assumed the presidency of Gallifrey, but also caused a whole nother mess in Gallifreyan history. Maybe it's his past selves that have to be brought in to fix things and restore the original timeline, no matter how painful it is. On top of this, I like the idea that Rose Tyler from this storyline is from the 9th era and has been brought to Gallifrey by a fallen number 10 as he tries to fix everything. Also, Mr. Dapper Ood may be in a similar situation, being brought aboard after failing to steer 10 back on course. I've not looked at other theories yet, but I'm going to now. I've got all of this written down and out of my head. Alright, so thanks to the magic of editing, I've just watched a couple more theories, and it seems we're mostly all on the same page with ideas. I'll link a couple of further discussions below if you want to see those if you haven't already. We're all going to be getting more details closer to the release of the first parts in September till January, and this is the sort of Doctor Who thing that I really enjoy, so I'll be keeping an eye out for details and trying to follow as much of this cross-media narrative as I can. I can't help but feel that this is also designed in some way to get the community talking to one another, sharing the pieces of the story as it unfolds across the various platforms. Anyway, that's my interpretation of the Time Lord Victorious announcement, and after the last 2 series of Doctor Who, and now another hiatus, I'm glad to find myself excited for more content. Thanks for watching. I've been Rick, and I'll see you next time for another sci-fi video. Thanks again, and goodbye.